This is Burlington, and here we are in the Channel 17 newsroom, and I'm Margaret Harrington, your host for this ongoing nuclear-free future conversation. And on my right is Maggie Gundersen, the founder of Fairewinds Energy Education, and over here is Arnie Gundersen, Chief Engineer of Fairewinds Energy Education. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back again. You've done several wonderful, informative programs with us, and viewers, we are very, very happy to welcome you back. Now, Maggie Gundersen founded Fairewinds Energy Education, and in 2008, and she has a history of as an expert witness in the firm, and she has a history as a in the nuclear power industry and everything like that. And I just wanted to fill in viewers who haven't seen us before about what you have been doing. And your last position with the nuclear power industry was as an executive recruiter.
Yes.
And Arnie, you have a long history in the nuclear power industry, right? And
oh, yeah.
Now
40 years.
40 years, and you hold a nuclear safety patent. Also, you invented something for nuclear safety.
I got out of college 40 years ago this month.
Aha.
I was with a master's degree, so yes, it's a long time.
Yes, and recently you were called upon to go to Japan as an expert on the Fukushima Daiichi disaster.
Well, Maggie and I wrote a book, and it's called Fukushima Daiichi, The Truth and the Future, and it's about what happened, the truth, which the Japanese government was not telling the people, and also the future, which is a roadmap forward for the Japanese that doesn't involve building new nuclear power plants.
And the title of our program today is 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima Daiichi. What is the link?
Correct.
So let's start with the fact that there is an opera that is called 3 Mile Island.
Yes.
And could you tell us about that, please?
Yes, we just came back from Italy for the premiere of the opera, and it was created by a journalist who, Carl Hoffman is his name, and he's an Italian and German journalist. Mm-hmm. And he knew Dr. Verginer, who was the foremost meteorologist in the world on the way radiation moves and on unique weather patterns, especially in unique weather areas, certain parts of Europe, certain parts of the U.S. He lived here for 15 years and studied U.S. weather patterns. And he was one of the experts on the case about 3 Mile Island. The judge on that case threw out all the experts that were not U.S. experts, that were not U.S. citizens, and just said their testimony didn't matter, which is an appalling miscarriage of justice, I think.
Yeah. What was the case?
The case was from the plaintiffs who were downwinders or upwinders, the way the wind was blowing, from the 3 Mile Island accident, and had radiation burns or illnesses, had losses of animals on their farms, or had cancer. And they brought a case forward and sued the utility and wanted, you know, to have the case public and have it brought forward. And by the time the judge was finished, there were not enough experts left to bring the case forward.
And Arnie, you were an expert witness on that, right?
Yeah, Dr. Verginer and I and another guy, Dr. Steve Wing, actually there was a flow. I calculated how much radiation came out of the nuclear reactor, and then Dr. Verginer took it through the wind and showed where within Pennsylvania the radiation wound up. And then this Dr. Steve Wing was able to look at the epidemiology and determine that, my God, where the wind was blowing, there in fact is statistically meaningful increases in cancer. And I survived the process where expert witnesses are vetted. But Dr. Verginer was from Europe, and Judge Rambo just systematically throughout all the European experts. And so the case stopped. But it didn't mean that the truth has to stop. And what we've been able to do is piece together a large amount of radiation, much more than the Nuclear Regulatory Commission says was released from 3 Mile Island. It blew up and down the river valley. And you know, Vermont Yankee is a river valley site, so you get a situation where the hills confine the radiation movement, so it doesn't move out uniformly, it moves up and down the river valley. And then Dr. Wing was able to show in the river valley 20% increases in cancer. So the truth can't be stopped, even though the case was.
And I think what Arnie's trying to say is, you know, 3 Mile Island was a river valley site. Like some of our viewers here in Vermont will know, Vermont Yankee is a river valley site. And so those patterns exist, and they exist throughout the U.S. at different sites. And it's pertinent to show how radiation moves. And as we've seen with Fukushima Daiichi, radiation knows no boundaries.
Yeah, the phrase you used, it goes where the wind is blowing.
Exactly.
And now...
So how it became an opera, I think that was your original question.
But I know we want to get to that, but I want to know what the NRC concluded for about 3 Mile Island, because this is like it's old news now. 1979. This is when this disaster happened, and people have forgotten about it.
Well, if you go up on the NRC website, they say that no one died and very little radiation was released, even today. So basically, they totally ignore the information that's available. The key is that I was able to determine that a lot more radiation was released than was ever planned before that, and it was ever analyzed by the NRC before that. Then that radiation moved and followed the river valley, and we're sure that people in that river valley got much higher radiation exposures than they were ever, than federal authorities ever indicated.
And so the NRC, as the expert on where the radiation goes, is still using whatever process they used to determine how much radiation is expelled.
We have a good video on our site. It's me for half an hour talking about nuclear power at 3 Mile Island, and it specifically goes to that. The NRC deliberately distorted the calculations to make the exposures low.
This is an old story, and it's a new story. It's a continuing story about deliberately changing the information. This is shocking, and right now we're sitting at a little over a year after the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, right. And the NRC has given 20-year extensions to Vermont Yankee and to other aged power plants. This is terrible news. That's old news, and it's new news at the same time. And now, can we get to the opera? Now, this opera was in Europe. It's called 3 Mile Island, and I have Andrea Molino. Was he the?
He was the composer, and Carl Hoffman, who's a noted journalist on radio, has a 30-year career in radio in Germany and Italy, and has been the foreign correspondent from Germany to Italy and lives in Italy. He's the one who made this. He also makes film. He's a filmmaker. And he's the one who filmed Arnie and filmed Dr. Verginer originally. He met Dr. Verginer on a train, and the two of them had this discussion 30 years ago about 3 Mile Island and Dr. Verginer's findings, built up this friendship, and then Carl Hoffman started filming Dr. Verginer because he just thought the story was so compelling, and he had at some point wanted to bring it forward, and he continued to research nuclear issues around the world, especially, you know, after both 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. He wanted, you know, this information to be brought public and be in a historical record. And after the accident at Fukushima Daiichi, he wanted to show how these issues are tied together.